What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 57 of the U.S.S. CERRITOS tutorial. I'm Zerrelite. I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got about a 17-minute video. We're going to be building the cargo room. This was another request I had within the community, so I'm making sure to give you guys the stuff that you've been asking for. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. See, I've already got my reference shot of kind of how the cargo room on the CERRITOS looked. Now, we are going to have some restrictions, and this is going to kind of suck. And it just is what it is. This was a mistake on my part that, well, I guess it's not necessarily a mistake. Put it this way. I needed to either do one of two things. Either needed to make the saucer bigger or maybe only have one set of circular corridors. I think that would have fixed the problem of what I'm having as far as right now, the issue with space. So there's going to be one or two things that we're not really going to be able to pull off of this room because we just don't have the room to do it as far as vertically goes. Like the shelving up here, we're not going to be able to do that. Really, all we're going to be taking out of this is pretty much the flooring. And just kind of use this picture to kind of inspire us with what we're going to do. I don't know if I necessarily hit the mark on this room, but still going to give it my best and see what happens. Now, directly opposite of this room, you can see I'm doing adding double down on my white terracotta. This eventually is more than likely going to end up being the medical bay. Or that, at least that's what I'm kind of leaning towards at this point. I know I'm not going to have a video that comes out tomorrow because I have to get on Minecraft this weekend and I've got to do two things. I have to build the medical bay and then I have to build the lounge for the CERRITOS. So there are going to be two more episodes of the CERRITOS coming out this next week, but there won't be a video this Friday. And that's because I don't want to rush it. I want to take my time with it. I'm probably going to get on Minecraft after this video and build a little bit. And if I get lucky and I end up getting it done, I'll put the video out tomorrow for you all. But if I don't, I think I would just expect at this point to have those last two episodes coming out Wednesday and Thursday of next week. And I think that might work out a little bit better. So at least this way I have some content that I can get out for the CERRITOS and trying to narrow down the gap between the CERRITOS and the Enterprise D. Because I really, this weekend, I want to mostly try to dedicate that to trying to finish up the outside of the Enterprise D, if I can. If I can't finish it up this weekend, then I want to try to get as much as I can done, so this way next weekend I can finish that up. So then after that, we can start the tutorial. But next week's videos, I'll have more information on that. Right now, we're just going to grab some lighting with the sea lanterns and just kind of throw them down on the ceiling here. You can see I did gray just going along the corners with a cut on the walls, and then, or excuse me, on the corners and the floors. And then the regular flooring, we're just going to do that blue. It's a little bit lighter in the picture, but for Minecraft, anything lighter than this isn't going to be a shaded blue. So it kind of sucks. We're kind of stuck with this color. So we're just going to rock it out. Now, what I am going to do is we're kind of going to merge this room with the cargo room from the Enterprise D. And the Enterprise D's cargo room has a giant cargo transporting pad. And that's going to be something that we're going to build today. And it's going to end up looking pretty cool. Definitely does not look the same as the one that I did on the Disco Era Enterprise. So hopefully you all will enjoy that. And then we're going to throw down some storage bins as well. So anybody that's wanting to play this on survival, you'll have areas that you can store your gear and whatnot. So right now we're just going to bang out the last two rows that we got here, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. Now, I'm pretty much going to keep the shape of the room that we currently have, but we are going to probably cover up the walls here to maybe do something that just looks a little bit different than the rest of the corridors. Because if you look in the picture, it doesn't have those lines, so I don't think that would necessarily work. Now I am doing the half slabs going along the cut here along the corners of the ceiling. And that's kind of the idea of where I'm going to take it, but I don't think I'm going to keep those blocks here. I think I'm going to take them down for right now, and we're going to do some layering first, and then we'll come back again with the half slabs. A lot of stuff that you're seeing that I'm about to do here, I just totally winged it. I didn't really have a set idea in my head on what I want to do other than looking at the screenshot and then knowing that I also want to build a cargo transporter. Other than that, I'm really using the shape of the room to dictate how this is going to go. And you can see here I'm adding a pillar there because what I was trying to replicate is these pillars here going on the sides. But the problem that I knew that I was going to run into is that the spacing with the cuts are not all the same. So eventually it's going to look weird because even if you try to space them out right, they're not all going to be going along the same cut line and it's just going to look funky. So that was my main reason for getting rid of that. It's not going to work. And I think right now we're going to jump in to the back. We're going to work our way forward. So we're going to start with the transporter pad. And I'm going to kind of keep it the same color scheme to the other transporter pad that we did, but making something that looks a little bit beefier. Even though this will be smaller technically than the other one, um, it definitely does feel like a little bit beefier than other one because basically this is just one big pad because you're not bringing up multiple people at once, just like your cargo and stuff. So I mean that's just going to come up in orders or whatever. So um, the blue in the middle, that's going to be the center of our pad, and yeah, and we're just going to fill in the sides with the gray. This way we have that blue dark gray pattern. I think that'll look pretty good, very next gen. And then we're just going to soften that cut line with half slabs. I think that'll look pretty good. Now what this thing is missing is a top, so we're definitely going to have to do that as well, building a top portion of it going along the roof here. So I'm going to do, you can see I'm just doing off two corners and just building straight up to make just a double check and make sure that my placement is correct. And again, I'm going off that same, my old rule. If I do one thing on one side, I'm doing it on the other one just to keep it fresh in my mind. Design itself is pretty cut and dry, kind of hard to mess it up. So I'm going to do the same thing for the center blue. I could have eyed it, but never a bad idea just to double check your work. Because usually that one time that you don't double check it ends up being off by one. And we're just going to fill all that in. There's still, I think there was one more that I missed. Right in there. I don't think I see it. Yes, I do. Cool. We're going to do the same thing at the top. We're going to soften the cut line with a half slab. Make it look like we always intended to do this. It'll look pretty good. It's going to get a little dark here. I think we're going to have to do, underneath these half slabs, we're going to do the sea lanterns. This way we have a lot of lighting back here, and the lighting itself is going to be hidden from these half slabs. I'm really happy I came across that because ever since I noticed that I can do that, I do it all the time now. Because it's hard to do the lighting on these ships, because especially when you look at the picture here, it's just white, white lights. And I wish that they would put an update out for Minecraft where they just had a block that was just white and it lit up. I mean, it would make my day. But I mean, that's kind of the challenge in this. At the same time, we're using the blocks that we have at our disposal and trying to come up with something that feels, like the CERRITOS cargo room. even though we're at this point we're drastically veering away from the picture. But again, we're just trying to use this picture to inspire us, um, to come up with something that'll work. And you're not bound to stick to this if you don't want to. Take it the same way I'm taking this. Use what I'm doing here as inspiration to inspire you on things that you can do with your ship. That's really the whole purpose of my entire tutorial. I mean, if you really want to, you're more than welcome to copy everything that I'm doing. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to dealer's choice, and these ships don't necessarily exist, so you can always make that argument. Well, this is my version of the Cerritos, and nobody can tell you that it's wrong. You know, um, so that's definitely a cool thing about it. It opens up a lot of creative freedom. But for me, when I'm doing these builds, I try to stick to it as much as I can, so I can at least say that it's a fairly accurate um, representation of the Cerritos. I think so far, probably the cargo room is probably going to be um, the one room that veers off the most so far. I have a sneaking suspicion that when I do the medical bay and then also the lounge, it'll be in the same boat. Just because pretty much the room that we're going to have to work with is pretty much the same thing what we're dealing with right now. So we're not going to have a ton of space, and it'll be very hard to like with a lounge, for example. The lounge is almost going in a circle, kind of. A prime candidate for where that room could have gone would have been the center of the ship, but we can't do that because engineering is in the center of the ship on this build. So it's just one of those things, where you get to that you're doing a ship for the first time, you learn a lot of things from it. And that's one of the reasons why I want to build a few more next generation ships from that era, because I feel like after doing this ship, after doing the Enterprise D, I'll have learned a ton between doing those two ships. And then when I want to do different things like this, as far as having engineering in the center of the saucer as opposed to the lower hull, I can prepare better ahead of time to accommodate my spacing problem that I had. Because as awesome as it is to have two circular corridors, um, I'm not gonna lie. I think the easy solution would have been just to take out one of the circular corridors and have the extra space, and we would have been able to do a little bit more. Um, at this point, that's still technically an option. I'm not going to be doing it on this tutorial because I don't want to blow it up by another 30 episodes, and I would like to move on to Enterprise D. But for those of you that are wanting to do that, that's definitely an option. Um, if I had to personally pick between the two, I would probably get rid of the inner circular corridor and keep the wider one. And in all honesty, what I would do at that point is maybe slightly move the wider one inwards, but that's going to be a whole other headache in itself, because then you're going to be trying to build out your corridor um, with a roof on your ship. I've done it before. It's almost impossible to do. That was something that I did when I was working on my Enterprise A, because I've said it before, I've rebuilt that ship like I feel like 10 times. Um, Ultimately, what I ended up having to do in order to get my corridors right, I actually had to take the top hull off just so I could see down and make sure that my ring was right. Because what was happening before, when I'd be trying to build it inside, you can't really see if your circle's off. You know what I mean? So that's just something, to consider. I just want to give my thoughts on that, because I think at this point that would be an option, um, that you could possibly do and maybe get away with. Um, but yeah, we're just kind of gonna work up get the last of the content out that I have planned for the Cerritos, and then we'll be off to the races with the Enterprise D. Like I said, I'm hoping to have that out within the next week to 2 weeks. But it's something I'm not trying to rush it. I would rather take my time, and if it takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. If it takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. That's why I'm not putting a date on it, because I don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity just to hit a deadline on it. So hopefully everybody understands with that and appreciates the fact that I'm taking my time with Enterprise D and trying to give you the best ship that I possibly can. I did also I tried to do that with the Cerritos, but yeah, just kind of how it is. Sometimes you're building these ships from scratch. Sometimes you're going to hit things that you're just not going to foresee, and that goes to show because I've done several of these ships at this point, but I've never built one quite like the Cerritos before. But if I ever come across another specialty ship that has a variety, or not a variety, that has vast difference in the interior on the saucer, um, I'm going to look at it a little bit differently. Maybe try to plan it out a little bit better. The Enterprise D is actually going to be a great candidate for that because there's so many rooms on the interior that you're just never going to see on another Federation ship. Um, it's something that I keep talking about, and I know some of you are probably like, well, what stuff is that? I'm saving it for when we do the tutorial. This way it gives me a little bit of stuff to talk about, but I've got a list of things that we're going to add, and it's going to be out there. But I mean, a lot of this stuff they never even showed on the show, but they made concepts for it, which is crazy. Um, and I can understand, especially at the time when the show came out, like some of these concepts that they were making, it was like there's no way that you could afford to ever do this. Today they could, but back then, like in the late 1980s, there was no way that they can do some of the stuff that they were talking and that they were conceptualizing to do on the interior. But it's going to be awesome because we'll be able to build all this stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that. Um, one thing that that I will talk about just to give you a taste of where things are going to go. So I don't know if any of you noticed on Next Generation, their bar was called 10 Forward, and I never really put two and two together. I just thought that that was a cool name of the bar, and it turns out that it is named that for a specific reason because it is the 10th bar in the forward section of the saucer. So that means there's 9 other bars slash lounges on the Enterprise D and possibly more than that. So that just kind of gives you an idea of some of the stuff that I found. I don't know if we're end up building all 10 of those because I don't want to have a lot of repeat stuff like that. And even though the Enterprise D does have that, I think what I'm going to ultimately do is try to show a variety of the different things that the ship would have, and some of the more grandiose things that the ship has. I'm going to try to build those out. And if we have the room to incorporate all 10 lounges, then I'll do it. But if we don't, um, at least I've done the ship justice and I've incorporated all these other different rooms that were either shown on the show or conceptualized. So we're in pretty good spot right now. We're actually moseying on down to the end of this video. See, I'm cutting the block line here that's directly above these storage bins. And I'm doing that so this way anybody that wants to use these that's building the same thing that I am, so you can actually use your storage bins, because I made a mistake. I didn't actually consider that those blocks coming down all the way that you wouldn't be able to open them. I did it off camera real quick and I realized, oh well. So I got to make a slight change to that. One thing I could have done here is maybe do a row of half slabs just to connect it all and make it look nice and pretty. Yeah, definitely veers away from the Cerritos cargo room, but I think all things considered, not horrible. It's definitely a cargo room, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. We've got our storage bin cargo, we have got our transporter room here. We're in pretty good shape. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me today. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today's episode. If you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Also, new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can usually catch my new Starship Evo builds dropping on Mondays and my Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Fridays. Those videos on YouTube drop at 7 p.m. Eastern. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe weekend, and I'll catch you on next week's episode.